Okay, go live when you're ready. Oh,
We are live.
all right.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Serena Mikhailis, and with me I have Ben. And we're going to be calling out Netflix. I'm just going to go and share the link on my timeline. Just give me a sec because this is more difficult than Google Hangouts. With Google Hangouts, it's just like right there, like right in front of my face. With this, I manually have to go through my channel, and I don't visit my own channel. Obviously, I obviously just don't go like, oh, let me visit my own channel. I don't visit my own channel. So uh let me go and put this on Twitter. Try to get other people to see it.
Right, I'll share it when it's I don't actually have Netflix, but
Oh, I don't have Netflix either.
mhm.
I don't have Netflix either. But we are dealing with the what's it, cuties? Like we're dealing with cuties, so it's like I don't have a Netflix either. I don't have a Netflix either. I only knew about it because it was all over my timeline. And what I'll do is that let's respond to an article. I'll just go to screen share. Screen
Okay.
share. So I'm not an expert with this. I don't really. It's not like Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts.
No, I miss Google Hangouts. It was
Yeah.
it seems to work perfectly. I don't know why they got rid of it. But I know that this did come up on Twitter, didn't it, Rin? I mean, you showed me a few things. All right, yeah.
Yeah, you could probably see it now.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, Netflix condemned for sexualizing children with cuties film promotion. Streaming China has amended poster and synopsis following backlash. And this is written by the Independent. I put it through the archive today because if you could see the video archive, you could see that the ad actually plays in the background. So when I saw the ad, it's like, well, it's not just the poster that's the problem. Like even like in the ad itself, uh, like we were talking about off air, how I sent you screenshots of like uh, in between the girl's legs. That came from that ad.
Oh, that's horrible. I mean, I've not seen this specific ad apart from the screenshot you sent me. I don't actually have Netflix. However, I have seen many, many times similar images, and I've seen in magazines and things like that, they have young children, girls especially, wearing, I would say, revealing clothing that are too old for them. That's girls in the preteen girls, wearing like low cut tops, short skirts, things like that, and it makes my skin crawl when I see that. It's very sinister.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem to go after young girls in particularly. Like they don't really, I mean, except for like Desmond, it's amazing. And I think that there's this other boy, but it's, like with Desmond, it's amazing. He's been sexualized, but it seems to predominantly impact the little girls.
Yeah. I'm concerned with education. I mean, a lot of people are reporting on this. I mean, I've got a daughter who's 25. She's grown up now, and I'm glad. But schools have changed a lot since she was a little kid. Like, children are taught, they're given like the birds and the bees education that I had, and I dare say you had at school. at a much younger age. I mean, I basically had this education when I was aged about 11 or 12. Um, Kids these days are getting it in preschool. They're getting it in like what you would call in the States first grade, what we would call nursery school, primary school. And that's too young. They're too young to take on board that kind of information. It's not healthy.
I mean, at most, if a kid is going to be raped, but then it's like, who's doing the raping? Is the teacher doing the raping? Like, we cannot forget that teachers also rape, but it's like, it's kind of like, on one hand, it does make sense to talk to kids about these things in the sense that they might get raped. And, it's important to know if a person touches you here, tell an adult ASAP. But it's kind of a lot like, would parents be able to take part in these sexual education classes? Would the parents be able to get a heads up and take part, and hear it,
Yeah. They always say well to say tell an adult, but the thing about it is, it's the teachers, of course, can be criminals too, as you've just said. I mean, there was that Grigory Chikatilo? He was a Russian guy, serial killer, targeted young children. He killed. No one knows how many. He was doing it for like 50 years. No one knows how many he killed. But it's the problem. The problem is that it's encouraging people, I think adults, to take, at the same time they're doing this, they're doing the sex education, they're teaching children about abuse, they're encouraging adults to take a different view towards paedophilia than what I think is normal and healthy. It's something that adults should be repulsed by and disgusted by. It's a perversion. Yet adults themselves are being exposed to these images too, of young children dressed in revealing clothing. And you even have like people, top psychologists and doctors, who are coming out with some horrible ideas that I think shock me. I mean, they've got this thing called, was it pedosexual acceptance or something like that? It's called, where they're trying to say that basically pedophilia, like the desire for young children, the sexual desire for young children, it's a normal and natural part of an adult's mind, psychology. In the same way that homosexuality has been sort of accepted as normal and natural, pedophilia should be accepted as normal and natural too. But it's not. It's, if any adult is having even thinking about sex with a child, there's something wrong with them. They're ill. It's a pathology. And it's dangerous if they act on that. And of course, terrible, terrible damage can be done. So it really worries me the way the world's going, Rin, and education, the media, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I regret being like a teenager and keep using the words slippery slope fallacy, because what I've noticed is like a slippery slope going on, like as TV evolved, like first it's kind of a lot like, I mean, at first there's like no sex on TV. Like, like my parents, like, well, my mom, I had a single mother, and my single mother, had me watching like I Love Lucy and, and like, what's it? Oh, I probably can't say his name on YouTube, because if I say his name on YouTube, I'll probably get a strike on my channel. But it's like, okay, there was like Leave It to Bieber, and there's like Mr. Ed. So it's like we went from zero sex on TV, like no sex. Then it's kind of like, well, we're going to have sex, but it's going to be between adults. Like, don't worry. There's going to be sex, but don't worry. It's just going to be like between adults. So then you have like, okay, it's like, well, we need to have sex between, teenagers. And weren't we all horny at that age? Weren't we all horny again? This is great for a dialogue. I mean, if anything, it's encourages dialogue, and, like it would, empower parents to talk about sex with their teenagers, which we all know never ever actually happened. And then it's kind of like we're lowering the age. It's like, oh, we're at 18. We're gonna have 18-year-old sex. No, 17-year-olds having sex. No. Okay, like 16. Okay, 15. And well, 14. Okay, now it's 11. It's like, It's kind of a lot like you see this slippery slope. Like if you were to watch, like I Love Lucy, Leave It to Beaver, Gilligan's Island, where it's like zero sex on television. Then you see like sex with TV, but like with adults, like Three's Company, where there's all these sexual innuendos, but it's between adults, and then there's like Sex with the City, but it's like with adults and whatnot. Even though I haven't really seen it, I've seen a few episodes, but well, whatever. Then it's kind of like you kind of see it like going, more and more like with the teenagers. Like I think Dawson's Creek is one, and then it's just like teenagers. Then it's kind of like we're keep lowering the ages. No, it's like going to be like 18, then 17, then 16, 15. It's going to be slow and gradual, because if it's slow and gradual, it's going to be seen as no big deal. You're also going to have the no big deal, because it's kind of like, well, didn't we have 18 for a long time? What's wrong with 17? We've had 18 for a very long time. Well, what's wrong with 16? We had 17 for a long time. Well, what's wrong with 15? We had 16 for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say to people who tell you this is not a slippery slope, it's not a slippery slope fallacy, etc. My answer to that is, well, if it's not a slippery slope, where's it going to end? Where is the bottom? Because if it's not a slippery slope, it's going to stop at some point, isn't it? When's it going to stop? There's no sign of any end to this, and it's got worse. I mean, I think probably for people possibly older than ourselves. I don't know how old you are, Ren, but I'm sort of like quite mature. But people older than ourselves, they will tell you like the list of programs you just mentioned. I Love Lucy, Leave It to Beaver, etc. And we had in my country we had comedy series which are now regarded as classic, and there was no swearing, no sex. I mean, and they were funny. They were just witty. I think they were probably controversial today simply because they were politically incorrect. But there was nothing lascivious about it, nothing I'd say sleazy about it. But the barriers come down. The barriers lift very, very slowly, and you get more swearing. I mean, these days it's hard to watch a drama series on TV where there's no swearing at all. It's really hard to watch it. I was watching a DVD of my favorite program, Gone to Seed. It was made in the early 90s, and there's only a couple of minor swear words, and they mentioned the P word, like meaning urine. They mentioned that one a couple of times. That's it. And there's one scene where people are having sex, but it's just like you don't actually see them. You just see like the floor of the bedroom, and that's it. And that was regarded as sort of like adult in those days. Something like that would be like a children's TV show now. I don't know why, whether it's deliberate. Is it some people say, oh, it's the Frankfurt School doing it, or the Fabian Society and things like that. I don't know. Do you think it's deliberate, or is it just happening?
I think that it's perhaps, the idea of the importance of pushing the boundaries. Like, it's kind of like I was reading I never finished it. I only got 11% into the book, but Ben Shapiro wrote a book called Primetime Propaganda. And, he written about like how in the liberalism, I didn't read that in old liberalism. I didn't see anything on this in classical liberalism, but it's like, it's like in Hollywood, they're all about pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, movies these days. So I mean, I watched a documentary. I mean, Ben Shapiro's made this point. I've not read the book you mentioned, but I have watched his videos, and he's made this point too. And it was in several documentaries that adult-rated films were essentially, if you in the golden age of Hollywood, for example, adult-rated films were unknown. All films were essentially at a family level of entertainment. There were some that had violence in them, such as the westerns with Kirk Douglas and John Wayne, where people were getting shot. That was considered controversial. There'd be, if there was any reference to sex at all, it would not be explicit. It would just be hinted at, or there would never be any filming of sex scenes. You might see kissing, and people would kiss, and they just like put their faces together really hard like that. They just go like that on each other's lips. That was the only kissing you got. But slowly but surely, it's changed. Things have changed. Culture has changed, and I don't know why. I think it's a bad thing, and I don't know why it's happening. But it's going to do a lot of damage to people. And we know that children who have sex at too young an age, or even when you're a teenager, like when you're sexually mature, they suffer terrible emotional trauma as a result.
Yeah, because at what age could a woman um it's healthy for a woman to have children? Because it's like I heard that if you're too young, or that when you're too young, like they either had to do a C-section or they had to do something to you when you're too young, or I forgot what it was. But it's kind of like I heard that you did need to perform the operation differently because they need to keep the daughters try to keep both the mother and the child alive at the same time.
I know that people become sexually mature. Obviously, humans have a longer childhood than most mammals. I mean, most mammals, like it's usually the childhood period is less than like 5% of their lifespan. With humans, it's about 15 to 20%. But then we become sexually mature. Girls, it's about 11 to 13. With boys, it's 13 to 15. Girls slightly earlier than boys. From that point onwards, we can conceive children, and we get sex drives too. You said you start feeling horny at that age, and of course we do. And it's very intense when it first starts in a person. It's very, very intense. There's these new feelings, but of course, it's one thing to have those feelings and to be able to conceive a child. It's a very different thing to be capable of a sexual relationship and have it and becoming a parent when you're still a child yourself when you actually hit puberty. You're not emotionally mature. I mean, some people never do become emotionally mature, but most people, when they reach after a few years, you're adult, you're 18, 19, 20. Most people at that age can have a relationship. You could possibly get married, have a child, but the idea that somehow it's okay for children 5, 10 years younger than that to start to be sort of portrayed and to be encouraged to jump in too quickly into that world. It seems to be everywhere now. I mean, in schools, we mentioned they're teaching children about sex. They're too young an age. I mean, they do sort of like talk about family, like they have, for example, when you're in preschool, you learn about how some children have two parents the same sex, for example, like they have two women or two men as the carers, and that's a reality that does happen, but it's not something that the school should be dealing with. It's something that I think the family should be able to cope with. Families should be able to cope with that themselves. It's again, once you get into explanations, of different kinds of sexual orientation, transsexualism, things like that. Yes, sorry, the T word. I'm not supposed to say the whole thing. You get into the T word and things like that. Yeah, of course. I suppose when you get older, it's fair enough you want to know about these things, and you're at the right age to know these things. But 5 and 6 year olds, no, absolutely not. Shouldn't be thinking about anything except playing games and learning mathematics and learning to spell. Oh, definitely.
I think it's because kids will come across same-sex couples eventually, like when they're going to the store. Well, right now we're in COVID-19, but it's kind of a lot like when you go to the store, you're just gonna see it and bump into it, and like there are people like Blair White, and Blair White's made a YouTube video saying that she had something to explain what she's going through or what she went through as a child, because her biggest problem is not having the words to express what she went through as a child.
All right. Well, in that case, yes, I suppose if children have these sorts of feelings, then I would want all the care given to them. Yeah, definitely. I personally, with my own child, bringing her up, she didn't even ask me really about these sorts of things until she was 9, 10 years old. Even though we knew people who were gay, my brother is gay, and he has had male partners. He has male partners. She never really showed any curiosity about it though until probably she was 9 or 10 years old, and then she started asking me about it, and I had a frank and honest conversation with her. I'm glad I had that opportunity. I wouldn't want the school stepping in and taking over that process when she was like 5 years younger.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are many people who are parents that shouldn't be like there are many neglectful parents out there, or, you know.
That's the problem, I suppose, is that families seem to be less stable than they used to be. You yourself mentioned that your mother brought you up by herself. Is that right?
Yeah, I had a single mother, and it's like my dad was pretty much never around, and it's kind of like I've been abused as a kid. Well, not by my mom. My mom didn't really abuse me, but
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, it's true. Like my I had both my parents with me, but they were very dysfunctional parents. I mean, I wasn't abused by them, but they allowed someone else to abuse me, a family friend, and they kind of knew he was doing it, and they didn't care. So they kind of went into denial about the whole thing, and they pretended it wasn't happening. So yeah, I mean, I sometimes listen to Stefan Molyneux's show, and I know you're familiar with him. I think.
Well, I do not like Stephen Molyneux. Like, I've seen some of his takes on Twitter back when he had a Twitter, and I am no fan of Stephen Molyneux.
And I know you're quite a harsh critic of him, yeah. But he was talking about he does some of his, especially his early shows. He focuses on family life, and he says some things sometimes that really ring a bell with me about being a child, not being able to say anything, saying it's the ultimate power disparity, and that I think parents are. There seems to be a different culture in families at the moment. There's less cohesion within the family. I think my extramarital affairs seem to be going up. My dad had one, and I think my mum had one, even though they didn't say it's anything. That seems to be becoming more common. Parents splitting up. I don't know why, Marin, but it's very sad for the kids.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it also it's kind of a lot like I feel like we live in a culture where people could not be honest about jealousy. Like we live in a culture where people are expected to be friends with their ex, like I did back in the day. It's like, no, 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 get your ex out of your life. Get your ex out of your life. But I say, no, no, we could be adults. We could be mature. We could be friends with our ex. And then, like you have people who keep going back to their ex. You have people who are, you're not just friends with your ex. You are keep going back in with your ex, and say jealousy is also, normal. Like it's kind of like, but it's kind of like it's treated like it's abnormal. Like back in the day, we treated gay people like being gay was, abnormal. Back in the older days, for you to back in the older days, but these days we treat being jealous, as if it's abnormal. It's kind of a lot like, it's kind of a lot like, people can't be jealous or suspicious or whatnot. And it's kind of like, but jealousy is a normal, natural human emotion. It's like if somebody is with you, they would want you to get your ex out of your life.
Mm. Well, I certainly would. I mean, as far as homosexuality goes, I mean, of course, it is something that some people are, and my brother is. And if you go back far enough in time, you get to the ancient Greeks and the Romans, it's just considered normal, and they just learned to live with it. But I suppose times the acceptance of homosexuality sort of waxed and waned. It seems to go through a cycle or a curve. At the moment, we're on the ascendant of a bell curve at the moment as it's going up, and we're becoming more tolerant of that people. And indeed, me and my brother, we get on very well. I don't care about another person's private life as long as they're adults. It's as far as relationships go, if you have an emotional bond with somebody, like a lover, and you it's nothing wrong if you feel uncomfortable if that person appears to have one eye looking over their shoulder, so to speak. I think that's perfectly normal to feel that way. I mean, but I think I think you said it quite well. Actually, it's almost like you have to apologize for those feelings. I watched a documentary once about. Oh, it was actually one of these talk shows about a couple. There's a man and a woman, and they make porn videos together. They're part of the pornography industry, and she said she wanted to start making porn videos with other men, and he says, "I don't want you to do that." Now that to me sounds perfectly reasonable. If you're a couple, sure, if you want to display your sex life to the internet viewing public, that's up to you. But if you're not a couple, if she's having sex with other blokes, you see what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's we couldn't foresee the internet. Like right now, I think that's. I mean, she may not have thought about it if it wasn't for the internet, because with the internet, you get addicted to the fame, you get addicted to the attention.
Yeah, well, I've never made a porn video. I promise you.
I never made a porn video either. Like a person could search the internet all they want to, like unless it's a good Photoshop. Unless it's a good Photoshop, I mean, there's not a single porn video um of me over the internet. And it yeah, it's like there's not a single one. I never made any of those.
No, there are some videos. Some trolls have made videos or like images of me in a very very rude way, but it's not me. They're just photoshopping them. But so if you ever come across them, it's not me. But so
Yeah, I've seen photoshops of, well, okay, not porn, but I've seen photoshops of Stick Sexton Hammer with I can't say his name. Okay, that World War II German leader. Let's just call him Alfred Hitchcock. Okay, there's that mustache, that Hitchcock mustache, and Stick Sexton Hammer had it, but that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist at all.
no, of course it's just done as a nasty joke.
It's just a really good Photoshop, and it looks real. It looks real. It has so many people convinced it's real. It's like, it's like, you had that Hitchcock mustache, but it's like it's not real. It's just a really it is an incredible fake. It's also like I've seen a fake video of Sargon of Akkad, and it's like, again, it's not a porn video. It's not a porn video at all, but it makes him look really, really racist. But it's like if you like watch the original video, you could tell that he was taken out of context, and like somebody posted the original video. But it's kind of a lot like, like if you watch this video of Sargon, it's like a really convincing clip that makes him look like a huge racist. But it's kind of all like if you watch the original video, it's like you could tell that it's just a really good edit. It's like somebody just edited it really well.
I think I've seen that. Yeah, I've definitely seen the one with Styx. Styx and Sargon, of course, have their enemies, and I have mine. Someone did a Photoshop. It wasn't a porn thing, but they made me look like a dirty old man with a string vest and like broken trousers and things. It was pretty disgusting. It's very realistic in this day and age, but
I mean, there is also a bit, of an irony of it too. It's kind of like, okay, it's kind of like, like sure, like we all know that people do things like this just to be really, really mean and really, really nasty. But there is on the other side of it, like there are people who gotten famous on YouTube for just being honest and being like, this is a mundane Matt's edit. Like there is this, channel. I think it's ran by Dame Pesos. I'm not sure, but I think it's called Honest Mundane Mats or whatnot. But it is a YouTube channel. It just goes through all of Mundane Mats videos, and what they do is that they edit things like really, really well. But they like admit that it's an edit, like they're honest about it. It's being an edit, and it like got like really popular. Like I think it got like 23,000 subscribers. It's probably more now, but they were just honest about it being in edits. So like people caught on, and it's like really, really funny. It's like really funny edits, but realistic, but funny. And it's kind of like, it just got, far more popular. Like it's far more popular because I think it's like the honesty aspects of it too. Like when you're honest and truthful, there's not gonna be anybody who's like, oh, like look, that edit with Sticks Hexenhammer with the Alfred Hitchcock mustache. I mean, that's fake.
Yeah.
That's fake. You don't have to go. The fan base is fake, and you're out to get him. Which it's like if you hate Sticks Hexenhammer, you just turn him into a martyr because now he's your victim, and now people are going to be more loyal and more dedicated. You just gave your enemy more power because people are going to be more loyal, more dedicated because they're stuck defending him. Same thing that happened with Donald Trump. With Donald Trump, people would take everything he says out of context. So people who would have otherwise hated them are stuck defending Trump nonstop. It's kind of like, oh my goodness, I hate Donald Trump, but yet I'm defending his reputation all the time because some people are honest in general. And it's kind of like, but by, being honest about like these are mundane mass edits. Mundane Matt's didn't really say it. This person got really popular on YouTube just by making really funny edits because it made everybody laugh. Nobody had to be stuck defending Monday Mats. So like there was like nobody going like, okay, I am stuck defending Monday Mats. So it's kind of like it ended up, like it got really, really popular, and
Yeah, some of them are not malicious though. I mean, like, well, it's like I think the thing with Sticks they did Sticks was probably intended to be like a spiteful joke. Do you remember that? I shared it with you actually. It was a snatch of rock music which has Sargon. It's Sargon doing the vocals saying, "I'll tell you, Lacey, it's a F feminist system." Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think I do. I remember the vocals of Sargon going against effing feminist
Yeah.
system.
I thought that was quite funny. I just laughed at it. I thought if Sargon saw that, he'd probably laugh. He'd probably think it was funny because it's just. But it's if you it goes to show, I think, that a person's reputation. I mean, like, even aside the porn or the children issue, a person's reputation is a sensitive thing, and some people will just believe or act automatically when they hear some bad information about somebody. They'll just act automatically as if that information is true. You know what I mean? Like, they say if you throw enough mud, some of it sticks.
Yeah, that's true. Like, there are people, I mean, and it's kind of like people got to be careful what they believe in, the internet because great edits exist. People quotes mine you. People could edit a video like really, really well and make it look like a person said things they never said. You can't just automatically trust what you see over the internet. Like you could only trust like half of what you see, and probably even less than that, like probably even less than half of what you see, because there are amazing photoshops, there are amazing video edits, like it or not. If you want to be a decent human being, you got to get both sides of the story, because if you only get one side of the story, then you're going to be an easy person to manipulate.
That's true. Yeah, we've seen that an awful lot. I think as time goes by. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like make sure that if you hate a person, make sure you hate them out of something you've directly seen directly from their channel. Like make sure that you go to the channel directly or ask people for your timestamp. And sure, there are dishonest people. People also behave dishonestly to save their reputations. Like people would, delete tweets and go, I never said that. People would delete videos and go, I never said that. But
Yeah.
still, we owe it to people to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, definitely. That's right, Ren. Well, it's like I try to be honest. If I make enemies, and I do, we've both made enemies in our time, I try to deal with them justly. I try not to I try not to. What was? I think you said something on one of your videos. It was I don't want to play. I think you said something like, "I don't want to play by your rules because your rules are horrible" or something. I can't remember, but you said it very well, and I agree because you essentially become as bad as they do.
Yeah, like I mean, I could understand, Christianity like more now, like where the Bible says like love the sinner, hates the sin. Like before it's kind of like it doesn't make any sense, like but now it's kind of like now the whole like love the sinner, hate the sin makes more sense. It's kind of like, it's kind of like if you go like you're my enemy, so like I could lie about you, lie, manipulate other people into, thinking that you're worse than what you really are, well, you're still a horrible person because you feel the need to lie, manipulate, deceive. You probably either sink it down to their level, if not beneath their level. It's kind of like, so I can see why the Bible would go, who you are is how you treat your enemies. Like how you decide to treat your enemies says a lot about who you are. Because if you were to say that because somebody's my enemy, that you get to lie about them, manipulate, spread false information, well, you're still a terrible person because it's kind of like, what you're doing is horrible. So it's kind of like now I understand the Bible more. It's like, oh, like this is what the Bible means by, you know, I wouldn't go so far as to say love your enemies, like love your enemies. I don't know what they mean by love by the biblical sense. Anyway, they probably have a different meaning than today's love, anyhow. But it's kind of like I could see, like, that person may be your enemy, but that doesn't mean you get to spread lies about them or misinformation about them, and make it look like they do something that's they didn't do because you're the bad guy here.
Yeah, the IDW always going on about Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche said this, he said that, and one of the things he said was, if you go to make war against monsters, make sure you yourself do not become a monster. And that, I think, is very wise. And indeed, the thing about Christianity, as you brought up, and the Bible, and the the wisdom of the Bible is interesting because I'm not a Christian, and we talked about this on a previous video, I think. But I do understand the value of Christian ethics. I'm I suppose I'm what you call a cultural Christian, and you hear that term an awful lot nowadays, don't you? You hear it from people like Douglas Murray or other people in the IDW. Peter Hitchens, of course, is a real Christian. Dave Cullen has become like a real Christian. But even those that don't like Molyneux, I know you don't like Molyneux, but Molyneux's in this camp as well. I think they see Christian ethics and Christian values as a counterpoint, a counterstrike against what we've just been discussing. That is the breakdown of family life, the sexualization of children. I mean, Christian people who are devout Christians would recoil against that kind of thing, and things such as love your wife and husband till death do you part, to love and cherish, and things like that. And I understand why that's a good thing. I understand why that is healthy, and societies which embrace those ethics are very stable and very functional.
Yeah, I think it's because Christianity is also a philosophy. Like, like I would like look into like I would read a bit of a philosophy book and looked at the New Testaments, and there is like some overlap between like what I am reading in philosophy and what I'm reading, the New Testament's, preachings of Jesus.
Yeah, I should point out I'm not defending Christian institutions necessarily like the church. I know the church is certainly not perfect, and the church has done some terrible things. In fact, we know that there's scandals relating to the very thing we was talking about earlier, child abuse within churches. I mean, the
Yeah,
Vatican is.
Yeah, there have been child abuse scandals within the churches with the Vatican and whatnots, and and back when we were younger, there would be those Saturday Night Live skits about horny priests, and these horny priests would prey off little boys,
Yeah.
Um, but
I've
now
got,
it's kind of like now you see more people on the left doing it.
yeah, you see, like, I mean, Milo. I mean, I've got my problems with Milo, especially when he started talking about his supposed sexual relationship at the age of 13 with this priest, who is if you work out the age he is now and the age he was then, it's possible this man is still in the clergy and still preaching. In which case, then there may be more children in danger. But he what he said, he's been condemned by the left for what he said, but it's actually from a lot of the left that this sort of thing is coming through. Like Peter Tatchell saying Peter Tatchell's made. I know he's become a bit of a libertarian in recent months and years, but he's made some very disturbing comments about underage sex, about how it shouldn't be treated as, if there's like 2 year, if a boy is 2 years underage, it shouldn't be treated as a big deal, as if like a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old, like they're two different things. As if they're like, oh, it doesn't matter because the 13-year-old and 16-year-old, they're just essentially the same thing, which is nonsense.
It
Absolute
is
nonsense.
nonsense. It is nonsense. And I mean, child abuse is real. When I say child abuse is real, there have been situations. I remember that there's this well, it wasn't a video, it was an article that went viral about a guy who was abused at like 9 or 10 years old. And then like when he was 40 years old or whatnot, he can I say that word on the YouTube? Well, I guess I have no choice. He murdered the guy on site, like at the age of 40. And you would think like so many years has passed. You would think he'll be over. Or, like when you look at today's arguments, it's kind of like, it's like, there are people who just, I don't know what's wrong with them. But it's like this guy got abused as a kid, like at the age of 9 or whatnot. And then it's kind of like it bothered him, and it ate at him and ate at him and ate at him. And then like at the age of 30 or 40, he just took a Glock or a Celtic or whatever, and he just shots the guy dead. And then, like on Facebook, people were celebrating it too. They were celebrating the guy's death. Like so many people were celebrating this guy's death, and everybody's like, you deserve to die because you abused this guy as a child. It's kind of like when you're an adult and somebody's a child. It's kind of a lot like, well, it's especially if it's like family, or especially if there's a power dynamic there. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, how easy would it be, for, a predatory, ant to go, either you do this or you don't eat. If you want to eat, you would do this. It's kind of like, or how, it's like a teacher could go like, if you want an A in school, you got to do this for that A. And if you don't do this, you ain't get, no A. It's kind of a lot like there is too much power,
Yeah.
on the hands of the adults. You and the kid are not on equal footing.
It's true, and I mean, first of all, a legal disclaimer, everybody. I I would never break the law, and I'm not advocating that anyone else breaks the law in any way. But I understand, I think, how that man felt. I do. At the age I am now, I am still harmed by what was done to me when I was 8 to 10 years old by the man I've talked about him on my videos. I call him Centaur. So I've made videos about this guy, the guy who abused me, and I'm angry with my feelings for him, or also my feelings for my parents who allowed it to happen. My mum's dead now, but my dad is he's still dissociating from it mentally. And I just said to him, look, you don't let that man near me. Keep him. I mean, it hurts me to think he even got his phone number on you. And this guy's like in his 70s now. He's an old man. I doubt if he'd come near me. I've not seen him since my mum's funeral, but I wouldn't want to be around him simply because I I'm so upset, so hurt by what was done to me that I'm not sure I'd be able to control myself. Because and this is after all these years, after I've grown up, I've got a child of my own who's grown up, yet it still burns inside me. I've never forgotten it, and I never will. And I really do hate that man. I still hate him, and I don't want him near me. And if he came near my daughter, and I would defend her with force, definitely. And I wouldn't hold back. I wouldn't hold back. Definitely not.
Yeah, I've experienced both. Okay, I've experienced, abuse. It's two different ways. I experienced, some sexual abuse, but it's not by my immediate family. It would be closer to like, a friend of the family, or like a cousin. But I have experienced sexual abuse, but it's not from my immediate family. And so it's kind of like I think that's the reason why I never, because I know that people who were sexually abused tend to become abusers themselves, but because it's not from anybody in my immediate family, I think that's the reason why I never, rationalized it or whatnot. But I also, when it comes to my, immediate family, it's kind of like the abuse of spanking. When I say abuse of spanking, what I mean is, my aunt would want me to go get her cigarettes, but in the school system, they teach you it could give you lung cancer, you would, die and whatnot. And, like my aunt was like, go get me some cigarettes. And it's like, I'm like, I learned in school today that you could get cancer and you could die from this. And she spanked me for it. And it's kind of a lot like, like if it had been me, I would be a lot like, oh, thank you. Like, thank you. Like, I'm really happy. Like, I'm really, really happy that you care about me so much and go get it myself. But it's kind of a lot like, she was like, go give me some cigarettes. And I said, no. And she spanked me for it.
Oh, that's awful because children have a natural sense of, of children are naturally logical and ethical. So you have a natural sense of understanding things such as hypocrisy. I mean, the classic one is the father who sits his boy down and he says, "Look, son, you must never smoke when you're older. It's really bad for you." And while he's doing this, he's lighting up. He's going, he's lighting up and saying, "Look, you must. It's really bad for you to smoke. You mustn't do it." And of course, the kids don't have to be taught this. They go, "But you're doing it, Dad. You're telling me not to do it, but you're doing it." No one teaches a child that. They just know it comes out of logic, and it's true when kids are given conflicting messages and they're given contradictory instructions, which you were, even to the point where you were physically punished. You would receive corporal punishment because you were forced into this dilemma, and there was no real way out of it.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, and it's like, hey, smoking is bad for your health, and the school system wants it to the dangers of smoking, and then like I was like, I love you, I care about you, and I want you to live, and she spanked me because they refused to give her cigarettes. It's like not only that, but it's like not the only time she did something of that nature. It would be like giving me gifts that she knew darn well that I didn't want for my birthday, but then spanking me for, like not taking care of it. Like, okay, I don't really care that much about flowers. I'm not really much, I don't have a green thumb. I do not have a green thumb. I would like prefer to play video games. And, but she would give me flowers for my birthday and she would spank me because it died. So it's like, why on earth would you give somebody a gift that they do not want? Why would you give a person a gift that they do not want and then spank him when it dies?
It's so awful to be a little kid in that situation because you're given these mixed messages, these contradictory instructions that leads to violence being done against you, corporal punishment, and it's like there's it's a mixture of emotional abuse and physical abuse because you're getting the painful spanking at the same time as it's not because you've done something wrong. I mean, if you go and you smash your auntie's window deliberately, and she spanks you, yeah, maybe that's. I mean, maybe Molyneux's right, and you shouldn't be spanking kids. But at least it's comprehensive to a child. They've done something bad, and they're receiving some kind of punishment for it, whether it's the correct punishment or not. But when you receive punishment for as part of a dilemma or or a logical contradiction or an ethical contradiction, what can you do? If like you're like a little kid, what can you do? I mean, when I was abused, I was like too young even to realize what was. All I knew is that I was being harmed. I was being hurt. There's a man in the family who was hurting me,
Exactly.
and my parents were letting him do it.
You know, it's like when you're so young, you don't really know why you're being hit. You know, like you're confused as to why this person is hitting you. Like it's like, why are you hitting me? All you know is that you're being harmed, you're being abused. You know, like you're not sitting back and going, okay, like let me reflect and let me think about it. You know, it's like you know, you're just thinking, why are you hitting me? I'm confused. I don't understand. Why are you hitting me? So you being hit is like a confusion to you, and it's kind of like, no, I'm gonna hate you for the rest of my life, which I do. It's like to this very day I still hate my aunt's guts to this very day. Like, you know, like this happened when I was really young. I am older than that now, and but it's kind of like, you know what, I still hate your guts for what you did to me as a child.
Yeah, I
Are you
mean,
there?
when these things. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Oh,
you.
okay, yeah. When these things happen as a little kid, it hurts more. It's these things, emotions like fear, anger, emotional pain are so much more intense when you're a little kid. I mean, I've been hit when I've been an adult by other adults, and to be honest, I've forgotten about some of these occasions. I was in my job, my hospital portering job. I would receive verbal abuse. I'd receive occasionally violence. I honestly, I hardly ever think about it. But hey, all that time earlier when I was a little kid, I've never forgotten the feelings I had, the fear, and I couldn't sleep because of this fear. I couldn't, and the anger and the confusion and the betrayal I felt from my parents. That they they didn't only just allow it to happen. They seemed to see this guy as some kind of god. It's like he was a cult leader, and they were like members of the cult.
So this guy is under your parents' worship. Is he like
Yeah.
a stranger to the? I mean, is he like a preacher, or is like a uncle, or?
He's not in any way related to us. He's just a man that my parents somehow made friends with when I was 8 years old. It was just after we moved into the area because I come from West Wales originally, and we moved to Oxford, and and for some reason they made friends with this man, and he was just there. Well, he became like a part of the family. He ended up like being there all the time. Like every evening he'd come around and he'd have dinner with us. Weekends he'd be there just all day. Eventually he got married and moved. It's sort of like he moved, but he moved. Funny enough, he moved to a street near where we live. Like he didn't want to be too far away from us. I look back now and I think it's because he was getting some kind of sustenance from us. He was getting he was sucking something. He was sucking some kind of energy from us. I don't know if you're familiar with people like Thomas Sheridan, who's written about psychopaths.
Well, I heard of antisocial personality disorder.
Yeah, Thomas Sheridan wrote a really good book about this, which has really resonated with me about the personality of the psychopath, or the lack of any kind of like awareness or sympathy or empathy for other people, and the need to control others and the sadism and things like that. This was all in this man, and he had this also magical ability to entrance people. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he's the man my mother had an affair with. I know that my dad had a relationship with his fiancée before they got married. I mean, my dad actually told me that he did.
So this predator, Centaurum, you called him. Your dad had a relationship with his fiancée.
Yep, and I'm pretty sure my mum had a relationship with him because I saw them kissing once.
You said him kissing once. You know, it does sound like your parents were in a cult.
it is like that. It was a kind of a sex cult. I mean, it was awful because they got drunk one night, and then my dad started kissing Centaur's fiance, and my mum started kissing Centaur. And I was like a little kid. Like I said, I didn't understand what was going on. My grandmother was there at the time, and she was going nuts. She was like really upset by this. And my grandmother was always someone my mum never liked. That's my paternal grandmother. But I look back on her now, and I realise that she was like an anchor of sanity in that family, because she reacted to this in what I would call a healthy way. She was horrified by what my parents were doing, and they were doing it in front of me and my brother.
Yeah, that could mess a kid up.
Yeah, my grandma, she died in 2001, but I look back on her very fondly, actually, because I think she was the most sensible person in my family. Although I didn't really have as much contact or as much, I didn't have the relationship with her I should have, I suppose. Maybe my mum kept me away from her, or demonized her to me, just because she knew that my grandmother had sussed her out.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that.
Thanks. It's one of these things that's sort of like part of our lives that we just sort of. It's something I've had to learn to deal with, I suppose. But it just goes to show, doesn't it? I mean, like, there's so many things that can mess you up in life. It's no wonder, like, when people grow up and are unable to form relationships themselves, and they have families which split apart, and of course the state then steps in and says, oh, don't worry about that, we'll take care of your children for you.
Oh yes, oh, that's so annoying.
We'll look after them for you.
States, and not only state, but the media wants to give their own guidance to little kids, and they make things worse because those perverts in Hollywood are the main ones. Sexualizing kids is kind of like when it comes to Netflix cuties, that's not the only child abuse thingy that they have. There's also Big Mouth. Now Big Mouth is the cartoon, but even though Big Mouth is the cartoon, there is like nude, like 11-year-old girls or nude like 10-year-old girls or whatnot, and it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, what type of an adult wants to draw a two 11-year-old girls absolutely naked, like nipples and all, like nipples, like everything, the whole 9 yards. You see everything, and it's kind of like they were in a sauna, and like having fun around, naked adults, and not only that, but ugly naked adults too, like really ugly naked adults, and they're like having a fun time, and they're just enjoying it. And not only that, but the monster lady was thinking about how beautiful, like, those grotesque naked bodies are. Like, did this naked monster? Well, yeah, this monster was kind of like singing about like how much she loves dimples on the thighs, and she loves how a person's weight and whatnot. And she was just going into graphic details about how much she loves naked bodies and whatnot. And it's kind of like like that. Big Mouth is a show for people who want to abuse children.
Yeah, I mean,
or they call themselves maps now, and YouTube. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that YouTube would punish you if you say the word pedophile. I heard, that YouTube punishes YouTubers for talking about zedophilia, zedophile. I'm mispronouncing it on purpose, but what I'm talking about are the maps. So we have to use like their terminology, but you know what? Map could be used as an insult. Like how, like, before the alt-right was new, and like people were thinking, you're like, what is this, the alt-right? What is the alt-right? So I'm curious to what it is, but now the alt-right has converted it to an insult. Like, hey, map could be converted into an insult. Let's try using map as an insult. Like, let's just be like, you dirty, filthy, good for nothing map. Let everybody know that map is like, a 4-letter word.
Well, it's MAP, isn't it? Which is, I don't know, minor, and then the it's then another word, and I don't know if it's right to say it, but I know the
I
first one is
would probably
minor.
say minor attracted person.
Minor attracted person. Yeah, it's a euphemism, of course, for the zeta philia word, isn't it? The
Yeah,
zeta word. It's a zeto. It's a euphemism simply for someone who has a, I think, perversion. It comes from a
a
perversion.
zebra file, a file, like
Yeah.
that type of file, minor attracted person. Excuse me, but
It's all right. Hope you're all right. It's like, is someone like? I mean, I'm not seeing this big mouth thing or anything like that. I mean, it sounds to me like if this was something adult, you could have a laugh at it. If it was just adults involved, it would just be some kind of like slightly bad taste comedy, you know. But something a bit like the Carry On films, maybe, but without the wit. Yet, when if 11-year-olds are involved in it, it completely changes everything. It totally changed it into something that sounds, from what your description is, very, very sinister indeed.
yeah, oh, and like I think that actually Tina, I think it was her, but I'm not sure. But she told me that there is a movie or a TV show. I don't remember the name, but I think Tina told me that there's actually a TV show somewhere out there, and I forgot the name of it. It probably wasn't Tina. It was probably somebody else. Okay, like okay, maybe it wasn't Tina, but somebody told me that there's a TV show somewhere out there. I forgot the name of it, but they made it the map, the minor attracted person, out to be a martyr. Like they were like okay, in this episode, there was this adults who had these strong urges for a minor, and it's kind of a lot like he knew, and this him and this minor could never be together, so he took a piece of rope, and he did certain things to him. So with the rope, it's kind of like, you know what, f you, do not try to turn those people into martyrs. But it seems like there is a literal slippery slope that's happening that you can see for yourself. You can look at old media. You could look at I Love Lucy. You could look at, Leave It to Beaver. My Name is Ed, or no, Mr. Ed, and the Adams Family. You could look at all of these black and white TV shows where there was like zero sex in television, where there is like no sex in television. Then you could, look through time, and then it's like Three's Company, and then like the Golden Girls, where it's like, okay, sex, but it's sex with like adults, well,
Yeah,
at least it's
not
adult.
explicit.
Then you go and you kind of like Dawson's Creek. It's kind of like, okay, like I forgot their ages. I think they do. I don't even remember. It could have been 18 or 17 or whatnot. But then the age just keeps creeping lower and lower and lower. It would go from like 18, and then it would be go, well, 17. Then it'd be like, no, 16. Then it's like 15, and then now we have cuties.
Yeah, it is the slippery slope looks very slippery. If it's not stopping, then it looks very slippery indeed. And for then they have the very euphemism map is now a sign that they're kind of saying to these people, like an adult who has sexual feelings for children, they're saying, look, there's nothing actually really wrong with you. It's just the way you are. And that is not what you should be saying to people. What you should be saying to the people on maps, if they've not, firstly, if they've offended, then they need to be told they've done something terrible and they need to go to jail. If they have not offended, then you need to say to them, look, you need to go to the doctor, and you need to tell them, go to a psychiatrist and tell them what you're experiencing and what you're thinking, because it's not normal, it's not healthy, and you're a very sick person. And that's what you should be saying. That's what you should be saying. I know you don't hear it now. I mean, it's and there's so much harm done. I mean, do you know I don't know if it's true or not, but Bill Withers, the singer.
No, I never heard of Bill Withers.
Oh, he's a great singer, a wonderful sort of R&B singer, and he had a song called "Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone." I think that's that's part of the lyrics, and if it's the title. And someone told me, oh, he's saying he's sort of like there's some encoded message there about child abuse. Now, they're not saying that Bill Withers was a child abuser, but he wanted to get some kind of message out about it.
Oh,
I
I now I don't know who Bill Withers is, but
all right, okay.
I did hear there ain't no sunshine with she's gone. I think that was part of a movie
You know that
once.
song?
I mean, like the
Yeah.
song, like how they, yeah, you know like how they insert songs into movies and TV shows. I do think that I heard there ain't no sunshine when she's gone. I think I've heard it all the way through once.
Yeah, it's a song that a lot of people have heard, even if you've never heard of the artist. I don't know if that's true, but obviously some people are trying to get messages out. I mean, there's Joan Baez as well, and she wrote a song called "Play Me Backwards," and it's shocking to listen to because it's about child abuse, especially specifically satanic ritual abuse. And I know we're coming on to another area now, but um, some some of the child abuse is done by people who are doing it in a ritualistic way, and especially when you get into the areas of the media, like you mentioned the perverts in Hollywood and things like that. It looks like once you get into that area of the celebrity set, there's a lot of people who are doing it in an organized way and sometimes for ritualistic purposes.
Well, I mean, for me, I don't believe things unless there's like concrete evidence for it. But when it comes to Epstein and Bill Clinton, there is some concrete evidence for it. It's why it's really important for victims to come forward. It is extremely important for victims to come forward, and that is probably the one good thing that came out of feminism, because with feminism came the Me Too movements, and we got Harvey Weinstein being called out, saying, like Epstein is being called out, saying, I don't know if Epstein would have still been called out if it hadn't been for the feminist movement, because one of the people, who really went after Epstein was Rose McGowan. And at least when I first saw her, I think on Sargon's channel. Like she didn't. When I say I saw her on Sargon's channel, he played a little clip of her, and she seemed like far left and whatnot, and she just seemed, to be a leftist and talk about everything she's done for women and whatnot. And I think she did call herself a feminist back then, but it looks like she no longer considers herself a feminist. I saw a tweet from her like last week where she's like, I am not a feminist, so F you. But it's kind of a lot like, at least we live in a time period where, Bill Clinton is getting called out. So something like we wouldn't, and photos came out of Bill Clinton receiving a massage from an underage girl. It's kind of like, I don't think we would have ever expected to live in this type of time. And I'm quite sure that in the past, something like this would be unheard of. It's like now it's becoming more and more commonplace. And I think it's a good thing to call out public figures. Like before, it's like we gotta respect the presidents and whatnot. And if when you're a president, you get treated with respect. But nowadays, like people are coming forward, like, no, Bill Clinton, did things with underage girls. Here are photos of him receiving massages. Like Jeffrey Epstein, was a minor attracted person in quotation marks. But let's turn MAP into an insult. Let's turn him up. He was a dirty, filthy, disgusting MAP. Let's make them regret using the word MAP. Let's turn a MAP into a word of shame.
Yeah. There's no euphemism for these people. There's no polite or good way you could describe them. They are sick. They're perverts. If they've offended and they've acted on their impulses, they need to be in jail. If they've not, then they need to be in the psychiatrist's office. As simple as that. The truth of the matter is, I mean, you mentioned Harvey Weinstein. I think he's probably one of the small fry. I mean, when he got caught, I thought, I hope they catch more of them, because he's probably one of like the least important people involved in this. The same with Jimmy Savile, the BBC celebrity here in Britain. He was a MAP, and he is a serial, very very prolific offender against children at the BBC. children who were in the BBC's care. He was caught, but the fact that there was so much institutional collaboration indicates that it's just the tip of the iceberg. And Epstein, luckily, is a big part of the iceberg. And as horrible as it is that we've heard, the horrible things we've seen and heard about Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, a lot of other people, it's not as horrible as if we weren't hearing about it. I have a feeling that one day everything is going to be known about. I hope it's soon, sooner the better. And it's going to be horrible. You're going to see people weeping in the streets, Ren. They will literally be breaking down in the streets. But it has to happen. It has to happen. We have to go through this experience where we find out exactly how bad it is, so we can then make sure it never happens again, and children and young people can be safe. That's what I hope.
I think that's the good thing about YouTube and celebrities coming over from YouTube, because with celebrities going from, corporate media to YouTube, they can now be famous and still call out these corporations and still get money. That means that, if they want to speak out against Hollywood, they could go on YouTube and still keep their fame.
Yeah, I mean, people like I do respect people like Corey Feldman, Elijah Wood. These were two child stars who have been outspoken about what was done to them. I mean, in his own way, Milo has been outspoken. The problem is he's acting like my dad did and my mum did. He's just like shrugging his shoulders and like kidding himself that it's nothing to worry about when it is. It's his way of coping with what was done to him. It's now becoming to the point where it's not taboo to speak about these things anymore. It's no longer a conspiracy theory that only silly loonies believe in. It's something real. It's something, ironically, the loonies were telling us about this for years and no one believed them. Now it's all being revealed. We've got Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail. I mean, I don't know how long for. I assume at some point she's going to catch COVID-19 or slip on the floor. I don't think she'll be suicide again. It's just too obvious. But she'll have some kind of accident before she goes to trial, because the good thing is, if she does live to go to trial, more names are going to come out, many, many more. And it won't be possible to give her a full trial without other names appearing. And I just hope Prince Andrew apparently has not been in the country for a while. I don't know where he thinks he's going to hide, but we'll see.
But this is why I like how things are becoming more and more. What's it? Okay. This is why I love the improvements of technology. Like, like how they're like already like realistic robots in Japan. Like if you go to Japan, you see these realistic robots that could walk and talk, and they're like so much like regular people. But then I think that this is great because the reason why is that somebody, I don't remember who. I'm not gonna lie, I really have no idea who, but somebody sent me an article, and in this article, a judge had her son shot and her husband critically wounded. Now, she was in charge of the Epstein case, but this judge, does sentence the very wealthy and the very powerful into prison. So this judge, and I think she worked for Barack Obama, if I'm not mistaken. But Barack Obama, she's really good though. Like, she's really good because she put so many powerful people into jail. She has an amazing record. But and I think I sent you this article. But her son got shot dead, and her husband got critically wounded, and it was supposed to be like a message, like do the quotes unquotes right thing by, like when it comes to like Epstein and Maxwell, like turned a blind eye, or like your husband's next, you're next. But when it comes to us moving into a digital era, what I would imagine happening is that the truth could be revealed, because when it comes to an AI, those things don't die. Like, if it's an AI, it can't really die. It can't really, like once when you have an AI system there, you have something that could never die, never be bribed, never be blackmailed. You can never ever send an AI a prostitute. It would never care. It has zero emotions. So it's kind of like if we could just have an AI that's it's good enough to like watch over cases like this, like cases like Epstein and Maxwell, like real future cases like this. Not this immediate case because we're not there yet. But if you look at Japan, we're really close. We may not be there yet, but if you look at Japan and you look at all of these robots, we're actually very close. And
Yeah,
it's kind of a lot like, like, can you imagine if, an AI was in charge of the Epstein case? There would be like no blackmail. It cannot be blackmail. It cannot be bribed. You cannot give money to it. You cannot, give it like little kids. You cannot, figure it out. It's probably smarter than you. And
yeah.
it could never die. It can never die. You could, probably tamper with it. You could tamper with it. You could hack it, but it would never ever die ever.
It would certainly be preferable with some of the officials that they have in government at the moment. I mean, some of them are playing along because basically they're offenders because they've been to Epstein's Island. They've been filmed with young girls and things like that. So a lot of them are playing along for that reason. And of course, an AI wouldn't be affected by that.
Yeah,
At least,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's because an AI cannot molest a child. An AI is incapable of molesting a child. An AI could only do what it's programmed to do. But I mean, this is why I think we're heading in that direction. There was this old article mentioned by Sargon of Akkad. A really old article where it talked about how they put two AIs together. They put two AIs together and people got creeped out and turned it off because the two AIs were talking to each other and nobody could understand what they were saying to each other. So people got scared and they turned it off because it's like, well, wait a minute, what are you two saying good to each other? Like, we got to keep you separated.
oh my God, that sounds like the Forbin Project. There's a really good science fiction movie called The Forbin Project about computers who become like intelligent and things like that. Definitely, but it's like obviously like I don't know if there are honest people involved who are like have a sense of right and wrong and don't lose that ethical and logical instinct that is drummed out of children by this horrible culture we have, then that'd be great. I mean, this lady, this judge, she sounds like one of these people. She seems to. I don't know much about her, only that the cases she's dealt with seem to be quite noble, and she's now in a position where she's essentially been attacked because by the corrupt forces trying to keep the Epstein secret. So obviously this is not happening to Kamala Harris because all she did was like put pot smokers in jail and things like that. So obviously she's not the kind of honest person who would essentially be willing to get the secret out. And it's a warning, I think, to other people. And they've obviously left her alive. They've obviously killed her son. They tried to kill her husband. He might die yet. He's very ill. He's very badly injured by the shooting. I think they want her to stay alive. I think they're going to use her to warn other people within the judiciary. They're hoping that. I think they're going to try and kill Maxwell as well. They're trying to get rid of her as well, and keep this secret under wraps. But honestly, Ren, how much longer can they keep this secret under wraps? It can't last forever. The truth has a nasty habit, if you're a bad person, of coming to the surface. It appears to be the irresistible force.
Yeah, but this is why I think that the AI is coming. Not only that, but I think it's inevitable. Like I really, really think it's inevitable because the technology is pretty much already there. Like when you look at Japan, but I think it will eventually come to the United States because it's kind of like the United States has made a lot of enemies, and these enemies know that they cannot engage in direct warfare. So if you cannot, like the United States is really, really far in, the military, but we're not that far in the technology.
Yeah.
Like we are the strongest military in the whole entire world, but I think that Japan is actually much stronger when it comes to technology. So it's kind of like if we piss off the wrong people, it's kind of a lot like it's kind of like it's like, well, America, you have everybody beat when it comes to the military, so we're not going to be dum dums and try to challenge you with a military fight. But then you could just like can you imagine how many dirty secrets like you already have Bill Clinton, you already have like Epstein and Harvey Weinstein. Could you imagine how much you could get away, how much damage you could cause to the United States if you are the enemy of the United States? But if you put an AI program, you kind of like put it into like Hollywood, and you put it into the presidency, and inform the United States, inform the citizens, what's been going on, because it's kind of like if the citizens figure out what these Hollywood types are up to. I mean, Hollywood, and not only that, but we're even already are heading in that direction anyway, because of YouTube's very existence. Like you see, actresses like Rose McGowan moving away from Hollywood because it's like she doesn't need Hollywood anymore. She could start a YouTube channel, and she's already famous from Charmed. She already is famous from Charmed, and she was in like a few movies. Now, because of the internet, she could write books, she could give speeches, she could maintain her sense of fame, and she doesn't need to be loyal anymore. Like many of these celebrities, they no longer need to be loyal. They could speak the truth, and they could still be famous.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the the way warfare works nowadays is different to how it used to be, because the old battlefield methods, they can't be used in a sense because they've just become too destructive, because in the nuclear age you can't really do that without completely destroying everyone. So cyber warfare now is becoming a big part of everything. I mean, there's now entire, we have like GCHQ and the NSA, and who they are kind of making war against other states. There's non-state actors like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange and people like that who, for their own reasons, their own personal reasons, have decided to speak out. People like Gary McKinnon and others have as well, and by using cyber warfare, and they've done it from their own homes. These are not trained soldiers; these are simply people who understand computers very well, and that's the way it's going to go. And Rose McGowan, and essentially, Rose McGowan, I think, is essentially becoming like Sargon. She's becoming, and in a sense, you and I are too, psychological warfare operatives. Amateur psychological warfare operatives, because we are. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, we are moving to the age, like you said, we're moving to the age of cyber warfare. It's like you even see this with Anonymous, with the Anonymous being, hacktivism, where, it's hacktivism, like they hack other people's, computers, and it's all for anarchy, it's like it's all for their ideology. But we are now reaching the age of, well, we've been in the age of digital warfare, where, because as you said, if we were to use bombs or nukes these days, you would perhaps destroy the whole planet. Not only would you probably destroy the whole planet, you would destroy crops and the food supply. And with 8 billion people being in this world, do you really want to destroy the food supply? I mean, there's 8 billion people. Not only that, but we are too globalized because of globalization. You know, you probably get your wine from Russia. You probably get your, well, okay, the rich people get their wine from Russia. You probably get your alcohol from God knows where. It's like we're too connected, and it's kind of a lot like if bad things happen to us, like there are going to be Japanese people that feel bad. There are going to be even Chinese citizens, not the government, but there are going to be Chinese citizens that feel bad. There's going to be British people. There are going to be people all over the world that feel bad because we are all too interconnected. We're so intertwined or interconnected that the whole old way of doing war, like bombs and news, could turn your own citizens against you because there are going to be Chinese citizens that's that care about the U.S. There are going to be Japanese citizens, Russian citizens, whatnot, because you're going to have, they're going to be like, well, I have family that lives in the United States. Or they're going to be like, well, I actually hate the Chinese government. And the United States is always giving me hope, and it's kind of like, we're just too connected, and, therefore the warfare is now more digitalized. And because, in the United States, we pretty much have the monopoly when it comes to military warfare. But it's kind of a lot like, so now it's kind of a lot like, I think that other countries, it might be secret, but I think other countries are probably working on a more digital warfare because
Yeah. Yeah, in the modern world, I mean, conventional military might is not enough. It's almost just for show nowadays. But Rin, I'm actually on another show at 10 p.m. I'm doing another show, so I'm going to be a guest on the Kev Baker show actually. So going to have to take. I'm going to have to call it a night, I'm afraid, or afternoon in your case. Okay.
Yeah, I wish we could have covered the article because the article, well, I mean, at least let's get through we didn't cover any of the article, but we could at least cover
Yeah.
like what it says, like somewhere towards the um the bottom, where it's kind of a lot like okay, let me just read the bottom. The film has received positive reviews from critics, blah blah blah. It's specifically designed to shock and mature audiences into contemplation of today's destruction of innocence. Yeah, by doing it, and not only that, but this isn't even new. It's kind of like you see this done with teenagers. It's like first, it's like it's 18. This like a 17. Like we're doing the destruction of innocence, but we're doing it to 17-year-olds. Or we're gonna do the destruction of innocence. But don't worry, they're only 16-year-old, and the age keeps getting lower and lower and lower. So as far as explicitly designed to shock a mature audience into contemplation of today's destruction of innocence, it's already been tried, and then the only thing that happens is the acceptance of teenagers having sex. It went from, oh no, we can't have that, to now it's like, who cares anymore? The only thing it does is just make it normalize. Then it goes, the Hollywood Reporter's David Rooney also notes the film has a critical view of a culture that steers impressionable young girls towards the hypersexualization of their bodies, which they're doing themselves. That's the problem. You're doing it yourself. And today, the sexier and the more objectified a woman is, the more value she has in the eyes of social media. And when you're 11, you don't really understand all of these mechanisms, but you tend to mimic, to do the same things as others, to get similar results. And I think it's urgent that we talk about it. That's a debate is had on subjects, and that is happening, and we still don't like your ass.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously I've not seen this, and based on what you read there, it sounds like the makers of Cuties are actually creating some kind of satire. I wouldn't know obviously unless I saw it, but they're actually. I mean, obviously, I think they're going about it the wrong way. I mean, maybe you're right, and they're just over the top about it, but it sounds like they're trying to. Will they say shock people into being aware of the hypersexualization of children. In which case, I kind of agree with their motives, but I think you don't need to actually go over the top with it. I mean, if you want to shock people into being concerned about this, all you have to do is switch on the news and just provide some commentary. You don't need to make a film which shows children in that way itself. I mean, if that's obviously, I can't judge for sure because I've not seen Cuties myself. I mean, I don't like the look of it. I probably won't want to watch it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the debates has been had, and it's kind of like, well, we had a debate. Debate has already had on Twitter. We still don't like your ass, so it goes like, we need to have this conversation, but they did this with 17-year-olds, we did this with 16-year-olds, we did this with 15-year-olds, and now look at this, it's now considered normal, perfectly normal and perfectly reasonable for a 16-year-old to have sex.
Yeah, it's a sorry state of affairs, and I mean, the very fact you feel someone feels they need to make something like this. I mean, it's if people are like watch it and think, well, that's not really happening, then that I think is the most dangerous element of all. If they think it's just sensationalizing, because it is happening, it's exactly what it is, and really, it's the point. I hope they bring across, which I mean, there's no guarantee they will, is that it's being promoted as something normal. It's been promoted as something normal that society has to cope, has to become tolerant of, and it shouldn't be.
You're right. You are right. Not that, but I heard that one of the co-producers or the co-writers, whatever, I heard that one of them actually went to jail for mutilation.
Oh, really?
So I heard that the like either a co-director or a co-producer or somebody involved with the film actually got arrested for child molesting. So it's kind of a lot like, do we really want to trust these people with this film? It's like, no, no, no. It's like not only that, but everybody is outraged already. We don't need this. We don't need what happened to 11-year-olds to be the exact same thing that happened with 15, 16, 17-year-olds, where you keep lowering the age and go like, well, it's about time we had this discussion. Well, it's about time we had an honest discussion. And it's kind of a lot like, it's always under the guise of we need to have an honest discussion, but then what you're really doing is you're normalizing it, so you're making it out to be normal, so that when it does happen, people are desensitized to it, and they're like, what's the big deal of blah 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 having sex? No, 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 that's the reason why we're just going to nip it in the bud, and it's why I signed a petition to get it removed.
Yeah, I think you shared that with me. I think I signed it too. But if this person, this individual on the production team, and you talked about, presumably they're on the sex offenders register, which means that the employers, the producer, right? If they are, you see, then why are they giving that person a job which involves making a film about children? A person on the sex offenders register for that particular offence should never be considered for any job that involves children. Never, again in their lives.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But yeah, like I heard this when I was on Reddit. It's kind of a lot like the film actually speaks out against sexualization of children. And somebody on Reddit comment section said, well, in response to that person said, wasn't one of the people who were involved in the film gotten arrested for pedophilia? Oh, man, I shouldn't have said that word. That word accidentally came out. I hope I don't get a strike on my channel. But it's kind of like, didn't that person get arrested for child molestation? And and it's kind of like, that other person just got really quiet. And again, it doesn't make sense to speak up on something by doing it yourself. That would be like me, taking my hand and striking a child with my hand to speak out against, violence against kids. It would be like me, go into a building full of white people and using a gun and doing certain things with a gun. It's like, well, I think it's important to talk about racism. You don't have to complain about something by doing it yourself. It just looks like
Yeah,
satire.
definitely. I mean, if people are concerned about the issues of hypersexualizing children, then they don't have to go to Netflix. They can just go onto any YouTube channel of people who are genuinely trying to raise awareness of this problem, and they're not doing it in a way where they show in like children in these states. You don't have to show children hypersexualized to make the point. We're not doing it. Rin and I are we're just doing a simple YouTube discussion about this, and that's what you need to do, I think, and that's the best thing, you know.
Exactly. We are not sexualizing children to talk about sexualizing children. You don't see any nude kids like, see, children being sexualized, instead we're just talking and having a conversation.
Yeah.
And Blair White has been calling out MAPS for, I don't know, 2 years, a year or two. So Blair White has been calling out MAPS for a long time, and she does it without sexualizing children. So it can be done. So people need to stop acting like it's impossible.
Yeah, it's possible that these producers at Netflix are just that it's kind of like shock art. You know, they're trying to do something that's really controversial to get lots of people watching, and then they'll have lots of adverts, and it may simply be that. It may simply be a way of generating viewer revenue.
Yeah, shock
which
art.
case, yeah, in which case that's pretty horrible. I don't like artists who do things like that. I think they're just intellectual prostitutes, and by doing something that's really horrible and disgusting just to get attention, these people, that's really disgraceful, I think.
Yeah, that's the reason why people should just work. Like they're doing it more for money, and for money, it's just like the best thing you could do is to delete your Netflix accounts. It's like if you really want to help society, delete your Netflix accounts.
Definitely, I would do so if if I had it in the first place. You know, I'm gonna have to head off and get some dinner before I'm on the Kev Baker show. But I really appreciate being on your show. It's really great.
Mm. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for watching Professor Platypus. Let me read the comments before we go. The correct term is MAP. IPPH has a derogatory connotation, sarcasm. He wanted to make it clear he's being sarcastic. To Catch a Predator managed to do a great job of spreading the word without showing dirty pics of young'uns. I read the comments. I just wanted to talk to Professor Platypus before exiting. Thank you, everybody for watching. Thank you, Ben, for coming. Bye bye.
See you, Rin. Take care.